Hello, thank you for joining Falling for Learning podcast. I am TD Flanaugh. I'm a veteran educator who's worked in several different roles in a large public school district. I've worked as an elementary, middle school, and high school teacher, as well as an instructional coach for individual schools, such as elementary schools, high schools, as well as worked under the directors or the principals, supervisors as an instructional advisor for English language arts for 39 schools, and then later for 20 schools supervised by a particular administrator. So I have extensive experience with working with schools and teachers and students from pre-kindergarten all the way to 12th grade. And so as a parent, coupled with my experience as a parent, I have extensive knowledge in how to make sure that students are prepared for the next level and that they are on track for learning and to stay on track for success. Thank you so much for joining us on the Falling for Learning podcast. The podcast is for parents to really help them to understand tips and strategies and information that they need to make sure that their students are achieving at high levels, K through 12, right? And what they need to do on their side to make sure that they're setting their child up for success. So I'll let you kind of introduce yourself and tell us about yourself.
Sure. My name is Mark Bielang. I'm currently serving as Superintendent of Portage Public Schools. We're a district of just under 9,000 students located in Portage, Michigan, which is in the southwest corner of the state of Michigan. Our community we're a suburban community. It's just south of Kalamazoo. Mostly typical of many suburban communities, high percentage of white students. We have some minority students, and our demographics are changing. Our families speak over 50 different languages in our community, so we're trying to meet their needs as well. But that's a little bit about the district. Myself, I'm been in this business for quite some time, and I started out as a industrial arts teacher. I taught middle school shop and then moved into the high school level where I taught construction trades. Our students built homes out on a job site. And then from there, I decided that I really wanted to pursue administration. So an opportunity arose where I became an assistant principal of a high school. Later moved into a high school principalship in 2 different schools, and finally took a superintendency in a smaller school district of about 2,000 students, where I served in that capacity for 18 years. And I'm currently starting my 11th year as superintendent of schools in Portage, Michigan.
So we're glad to hear and kind of lean in on some of that expertise that you've had for so many different roles within education. So what brought you into education? Like, what was the reason that you decided to pursue this career?
It was all because of a teacher I had in high school. There was obviously my interest has always been around woodworking, and that got me into the construction trades. That got me into industrial education. But I had a teacher in high school who took a real interest in my abilities. He saw something in me that others didn't see. And he was the guiding force that I became passionate around not only the content, but in making sure or wanting to help others understand woodworking in this particular case, the same level as I did. So this was a gentleman that believed in me. He gave me opportunities both in the classroom and outside of school to help him on some projects that he was working on. And that's what really ignited my passion for getting into education. I knew what I wanted to do from day one going into college.
Wow, that's really fascinating. So that one educator really made a difference in your life as far as helping you to choose a path. What really stands out to me from that is that a lot of educators are, very academic and they really, focus in on that part. But you came in from a trade aspect, I think. And so I think that is interesting. And how do you in the school district where you serve, how do you all foster that? So not just, maybe an academic, but also those trades as well, and maybe even business as far as students and their career path.
Yeah, I've been a big proponent of career and technical education. Obviously, coming from that background, back then we called it vocational education. Now we call it CTE, career technical education. We're very fortunate in our area to have a very strong program and partnerships with the 9 other school districts that belong in our county. We're organized around a county-based system. So the 9 schools have combined efforts, and we call currently it's been called Education for Employment, where different schools will offer different programs, and our students are bused back and forth or drive to other schools to get programs that we may not offer. Our community, our larger community, the Kalamazoo County community, has supported a millage to support career and technical education, and we had an anonymous source who gifted us $100 million plus the land to build a CTE center.
Wow.
That construction has just started, but we're pulling together many of the programs that the locals had into a central site, into a beautiful facility. And so our students will have access to programs like never before. And we're hoping that by eliminating kind of that, that competitive nature that exists between students and schools, some students from going to another school because they're a competitor in athletics, in the arts. So having a neutral site, we believe will increase enrollment in those areas and provide state-of-the-art technology that they'll be able to operate and learn in.
Okay, that's really fascinating. So you are saying that money is for all 9 of those 9 of those counties or something like, is that right?
It's 9 different school districts, but we belong to a service agency. And so the kind of the vehicle that's receiving those funds is the ESE, the Educational Service Agencies. They're responsible for constructing the facility and coordinating the programs that will be held at that site.
Okay, that's really great to hear, pooling of resources, people working together, and all of it's for the, promotion of students, making sure students have what they need, right? And not just thinking about the academic aspect. I've definitely been guilty of that as a teacher that, started off on a really academic. It is really not always recognizing the importance of the vocational or career technical and education. And then also the business aspect of what students can do to contribute to the economy and our society. So I'm glad that you all are bringing that together. And that definitely sounds like something that people around the United States can take notice of and maybe duplicate different type of programs like that for you. So that's really good.
Yeah, not every student is destined to go to college. And, preparing students for whatever they believe their next phase in life will be is so important to us. And that doesn't preclude the fact that students who go through a CTE program can't go on to college. Many do. I mean, I did. I was in vocational programming, industrial education in high school, but knew I wanted to be a teacher, but that was my content area. So I think kids need to find their own passion and dabble in different things. It doesn't just start in high school. This career and technical center, we're already starting programming for 7th and 8th graders, exposing them to different careers where beyond just what their family might be involved in. And so many of our students don't see those those trades and those activities going on, so they don't even understand what the possibilities are. So exposing our youngest children to, our younger, I wouldn't say youngest, but our younger children to what's possible is so important to us as well.
Absolutely. I'm really glad that you have this aspect that is really thriving and being nurtured in your school district and the surrounding districts that you work with. Yeah, I just think that's one of the missing links, right? We forget, some of us forget students who aren't on the academic path. And I think there was a time, depending on the school district or the area, that when they tracked kids, like maybe, someone's for trade or someone's for academic, that maybe at the end that I wouldn't have the skills. Like if I chose the trade, I wouldn't have the skills, depending on my other classes didn't prepare me to be able to go to college. But I think now most of the districts have it normalized where there's all the classes pretty much will prepare you. Of course, there's advanced level, but even the basic level or the regular classes still are going to be able to prepare you for college. And I don't think that was the case always. And so sometimes people don't really notice that because before were put on a track and you didn't have the college level courses that you needed. So
we're very fortunate. Our community, and I speak of Portage specifically, has been very supportive of education in general. I mean, they've been very generous with providing us with new facilities. We're in the middle of a building project now. We're replacing 5 of our oldest elementary schools. We've already built new middle schools. And that's all to support our students. We want to make sure that our students are in the best possible places they can be. So we do offer things like the International Baccalaureate program too, for those that really want to push themselves in that way. So again, that doesn't happen without a lot of community support and understanding that it takes additional funds to run those kind of programs.
It makes me think as well as about what your ultimate goal is as a leader, and maybe like what are your 5-year goals as a leader of Portage Schools?
Well, I'm kind of towards the end of my career as a superintendent. 5 years from now, I hope to be retired and doing some things that I haven't been able to do. But our primary goal here has been to create the best possible environment for student success. And so our strategic commitments, that we call them, are primarily focused on our students, but we also realize that they need to be in a culture that supports them. So as I look at what I'd like to see happen down the road is for that culture to continue to grow so that we can be as best positioned as possible to support all of our students, no matter what they bring to the table when they come through our doors, is that we can create an environment that supports them so that they can be successful to reach their potential. And that's hard work, because there is no end to that work. That's ongoing work. Just, if you think there's an end to building culture, then you've got a pretty short-sighted view of what has to happen. And culture is hard to change. There's so much, I wouldn't even call it resistance. There's so much pressure to maintain what is, because people are afraid of change, or unwilling to change, or scared of change. I don't know how to frame that exactly, but change is difficult, and culture requires change. Changing culture requires people to change as well. So I hope that some of the practices that we've begun to institute in our district continue to grow and become hardwired so that they happen all the time automatically.
Listen, parents, it's summer. The days are flying by. You need to buckle down and provide learning activities for the kids to prevent the summer slide. Let me help you out. Join our email list, and in exchange, you will get our freebie, 10 ways to squeeze learning into the busy days. Don't let another day go by without providing fun and learning that will give your child a competitive advantage. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of those practices that you have that you are cultivating and that you hope continue?
One of the things that we've really become good at is rounding. All of our leaders round on other people. So using myself for an example, outside of the evaluation process, I meet with members of my executive team. So that there are 9 people on that team. I meet with them. It's a quick, informal way of touching base with folks to find out what's going well in their day. There, a set series of questions that take no more than 5 or 10 minutes. What's going well? Are you getting the resources that you need? What can we do to improve? And is there anyone who has supported you that you'd like me to recognize? So that gives us a chance to recognize employees who have contributed to someone else's success. So rounding has been an effective process. I also round with school board members. So twice a year, I meet individually with each board member and ask similar questions that gives me a sense of where they're headed. Mm-hmm. Outside of the boardroom, where we're not having that discussion in a public way. And then the important part of that is closing that loop. So once I've completed my rounding with administrators, we sit down together and I report out, this is what I heard from you. And it gives everyone a chance to hear what everyone else is saying, not individually by name, but I look for themes and threads that I can share with them that, that raises some issues that we can, further need to do. And I do the same thing with the school board. We'll meet as a board. It's usually part of my evaluation process where we do that. And it gives them a lot of good feedback. It gives me a lot of input and feedback as well. So that's that practice of rounding. Our principals do that with their teachers. They can take a group of other employees, paraprofessionals, our support staff, custodians, maintenance, food service staff. So it's not just limited to direct reports, but anybody in the organization that you want to get feedback from. The other practice that we've really institutionalized is surveys. We survey our students, we survey our parents, and we survey our employees. So we get ongoing feedback from those groups as to their perceptions about what we're doing. So the same thing holds true there. We get the information, and what many schools don't do is report back what they heard. So for example, with students, I get a report after students take the survey, and I happen to have I formed a student advisory board that meets with me on a monthly basis. And at a high level, I'll share results with them. And then we focus on the top 1 or 2 things that we're doing well, and we get feedback from I'll use students as an example. What are we doing that we need to keep doing that gives us these results in these categories? And then where we scored lower, it's the same sort of thing. What can we do, or what would cause us to get a higher score in these areas? What would we need to do, and get that same feedback? So it gives me a sense of the types of things we need to work on. It allows me to connect with our students to know what's on their mind. And then we develop action plans from that. And then that cycle continues to go. So it's like that plan, do, study, act cycle, but we're making sure that we let people know what we're doing so that next time they take the survey, they're reminded of what we've done to improve on what we said we were going to do. And that's built. I said it at the district level, but each building level leader gets information for their building from their parents, from their staff, and from their students. And that's where the work takes place. So those are a couple things. I know that was a little long, but
no, it's excellent, very thorough, and it really sounds like you have a lot that you can share with other leaders around the country. My last question is, like, what message do you have for parents as they're guiding and helping their kids learn and grow? What message do you have for them that they could do, or that will really be helpful in giving them an advantage?
Well, that is a huge question, because as kids change, as they're going through an educational system, I think the better you know your kids, and are able to share that information with their teachers, so that teachers to help teachers build that relationship with kids. That relationship piece, in my mind, is so important. I look at when my three kids were going through schools, and I've used them as an example. When I think of the term rigor, relevance, and relationships, I had three kids. Each one of them was tied to one of those characteristics. Our oldest was all about rigor. Throw her as much as she could get, and she would handle it. And that was how she was able to thrive, is teachers who recognized that. Our middle daughter was all about relationships. If you couldn't connect with her in a personal way, she wasn't able to produce what she, and reach her potential. Okay. And then our youngest, our son, was about relevance. If he didn't understand what he was doing, why he was doing it, he wouldn't put the effort forth to do that. So I think parents understanding their children's kind of their learning style, or where they really thrive, and being able to work with staff members on helping support that aspect of it, or at least recognizing that, I found to be very helpful. One of the things I wish I would have done in retrospect was kind of force them into certain opportunities that would help them develop skills that would help them later on. And that was, things like forensics or debate, or areas where they're up in front of their peers or the public to perform, because those are skills that develop confidence and allow you to flourish outside of the classroom in the future. So those are just a couple things that come to my mind initially.
Excellent. I think you have so many gems, to offer parents. You are a parent, you are a leader, you've been a teacher. So many different aspects of your experience I feel like are very helpful for our audience as they are trying to navigate, the educational system for their child and what works best for them. And it really resonates with me as well, because as I talk to parents, I really talk to them about, of course, math skills, reading, writing, but I also really stress the speaking and listening, because that means so much when people have to go on interviews, or when they're articulating themselves and working together with people. That missing aspect could really be a make it or break it for kids. So you recognize that. You said the same thing. So thank you so much for meeting with us. I don't know, like, if there's a way, if parents want to reach out to you, or if they want to find you, or they want to see your speeches or your meetings, where can they find you? We just updated our website. I think it went live last Friday. So there may still be a few bugs in there, but we can be found at portageps.org. That's Portage, PORTAGEPS.org. And that's our website, and people can learn a lot more about us there. Great. Thank you so much for your time. And I really appreciate you following up, and very excited that, I got to talk with you and just hear some of your wisdom and from all of your experience. Well, thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. It was fun to do this. It's, you don't always get a chance to talk about, your own personal journey and where you've been and where you still want to go. And so thanks for this opportunity. I hope there's a morsel or two that people will be who will help by this. Great. Thanks. All right. Thank you so much. the Falling for Learning podcast. We are here every week. Saturdays at 5 p.m. is when we drop our new episodes. Please listen in every week for those strategies and tips to keep you and the next generation on track for success. You can also find us on YouTube by going to youtube.com/@fall4learning. Again, that's youtube.com/fall4learning. We really appreciate you, and we are here on a mission to make sure that that next generation is on track for success and on track for learning. Thanks again. I'm TD Flynn.